Back in 2008, I was a student planning to go to university and needed some extracurricular stuff I could put on my entry applications. As most UK students know, one of the best to have on there is the Duke of Edinburgh Award. As a part of this award, you have to embark on an orienteering expedition, basically a long trek through woodland and rural villages, following nothing but a map and compass. No GPS allowed. It's basically a teamwork experience. You camp and overcome hurdles together. Anyway, I was out of shape at the time, and so my uncle volunteered to take me out to the middle of nowhere to get some idea of what orienteering was like. We didn't stay out overnight like I would have had to during the real thing. We hiked maybe about 10 miles through woods in a small village in pretty abysmal weather. By the end of the journey, we were both soaked to the bone and pretty damn miserable, looking forward to getting back to the car and just heading home. For the last part of the journey, we were on a dirt trail leading uphill with bushes and trees on either side. We were marching onward in silence at this point, when all of a sudden, there was a rustling in the foliage just to our left. From behind a large bush stepped an old man, dressed in a black suit with a red bow tie and dress shoes. He looked late 70s, early 80s maybe, very pale, liver spots dotting his face, and a gray-white comb-over. I was instantly weirded out. Who dresses like that to go into the woods? The instant thought seeing a guy his age out there in those clothes in those particular weather conditions was, this guy's lost his marbles. There was something else that took me an extra moment to notice though, that puzzled me quite a bit. This guy was bone dry. He didn't even have mud on his shoes. We stopped in our tracks and just stared at the man for a moment. He appeared to be as shocked and frozen at seeing us as we were of him. My uncle made the first move though, taking a step towards him, asking him if he was all right. The man continued to stare for a moment, not even moving a twitch. Suddenly though, he became very animated. It was like he just snapped out of a trance. He started flailing his arms wildly, saying something awful had just happened, that a good friend of his needed his help. He began walking backwards into the woods, motioning for us to follow behind him, which we did. We started off at a brisk walk, then escalated to running as we struggled to keep pace with this old man. After maybe a minute or so, he disappeared ahead of us. We could still hear him moving around though, so we continued to follow the noise until we reached this huge slope. We looked at the edge and looked down to see the old man standing at the very bottom, motioning us and pleading with us to follow him. I remember looking down. The slope was probably at least a 40-degree angle, spanned for perhaps 50 feet or more, and was very slick with mud. It looked like an accident waiting to happen, especially given that there were no shrubs or roots to hold on to or anything. I remember looking down at the old man on the other side of the slope and wondering, how did he just cross that so quickly and cleanly? I mean, at that distance, it was hard to see fine detail clearly, but I swear he still did not appear wet or muddy at all. My uncle and I looked at each other skeptically, and I saw that he was getting as weirded out as I was. Despite my feelings, though, I made a step toward the edge and was going to try to make my way down when my uncle grabbed me firmly by the arm and pulled me back. Under his breath, he said to me, "Something's wrong here." We took a few steps back from the edge at this point. The old man at the bottom started getting very irate. He began pleading with us again to please come down the slope, telling us he needed our help right now. His friend was in real trouble. My uncle shouted down to the man that we would head back to our car and call emergency services for him. Professional help would be on its way soon. They would have all the tools needed to help him. The old man suddenly got furious. He began jumping up and down, demanding we come down the slope right now, or there would be hell to pay. His voice had changed drastically. He was practically growling his words, his hands bunched into fists, pounding his knees like an angry toddler throwing a tantrum. I've never seen a grown adult fly into such a pathetic rage in my life. His eyes looked like they were on the verge of bursting from the sockets. His skin had gone from pale to bright red in an instant. We hurriedly made our way back the way we came, his demands and threats getting less audible as we got closer to the trail. Once on the trail, we practically power marched the remaining quarter-mile or so to the car. All the while, my uncle was on the phone to the emergency services, explaining to them that there was possibly a mentally ill old man stuck on the trail. We were ordered to get to our car and await the police, so we could show them where we had encountered him. About an hour later, we met 4 officers, 2 of whom had dogs with them, and packs of supplies like first aid, emergency blankets, etc. We led them to the exact spot, and then pointed the 2 officers with dogs in the direction he led us through the bushes. The search lasted all weekend, but there was no trace of the old man. The officers said the only trail they could pick up had been mine and my uncle's. They didn't see any footprints or anything belonging to that old man we'd encountered. This is one of my weirdest experiences to date. This all started with a fairly normal day at work. I worked at a small grocery store at the time, and my duties consisted of gathering shopping carts in the parking lot and bagging groceries. Just the normal minimum wage stuff. It was particularly rainy that morning, and of course, I was assigned to carts all day. About 2 hours into my shift, I saw a man rushing to get his groceries into the car. It was completely pouring out. I ran over to him and started helping him with his bags. "It's pouring," I said. "Mind if I help you get out of the rain?" "Yes, thank you so much." As he was closing his trunk, he looked at me with a very surprised look on his face. He lowered his eyebrows, looked me up and down, and smirked. "Hey, are you a new hire, perhaps?" "Oh, no, I've been here a couple of months." "Oh, well, you're very pretty," he said in a weirdly sensual tone. Thank you. Have a good day." I shut it down. I was not interested. As I was walking back to the store to hide until he left, I could feel him watching me as I walked away. Nevertheless, I continued to work, not really thinking too much about it after. After my lunch, I was at the register bagging groceries when I noticed the same exact man from earlier walk in. I pretended I did not see him and just kept bagging. He came up to the register and got a single chocolate bar. I didn't give him a bag. He stood towering over me and said, "Aren't you going to bag my item?" "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you wanted a bag for one little thing." I put his chocolate bar in a bag and told him to have a good day. "So, when are you off work, sweetheart?" "Oh man, I'm not really comfortable giving that information out." "That's okay. You've been here, maybe 5 hours? Probably get off around 6 or 7, right?" He smiled, winked at me, and walked away. Disgusted, I went to my manager and told her what had happened. She told me not to work the lot anymore and to ask someone to walk me to my car. By the end of my shift, I had a male coworker walk me to my truck and we scanned the parking lot, looking for this man's car. We didn't see him, so my coworker went back inside and I started up my truck. I called my mom to tell her about what had happened. Once she answered, I left the parking lot finally. Literally the second I turned onto the road though, I saw his car pull onto the road behind me. I told my mom I thought he was going to follow me. She told me to just drive around a bit and try to lose him. I drove around for about 20 minutes, just going in random circles around my town. I hit a red light, and he pulled up next to me and started yelling something to me out his open window. I, of course, pretended he wasn't there, but I could still hear what he was saying. "You know, you would bear some good kids for me. You'd make a great slave, little lady." He then started being very explicit about what he was going to do to me if he managed to catch me. I told my mom I was going to call 911, and if I wasn't home in an hour to call the police. While I was trying to do this, The man sped ahead of my truck and started to brake check me. Frantic, I waited for the closest intersection and turned up the block. My phone fell under my seat while I was turning, so I decided to go to the nearest open establishment and run inside and hide to have someone else call 911. The closest open business I could find was a convenience store at a gas station. I pulled in, parked, and ran for my life into the store. I told the clerk what was happening. She took me into the break room and locked me in there. While processing that I might have survived this ordeal, I could hear the doors of the storefront start violently rattling. Before I knew it, the clerk had locked herself in the break room too. She was on the phone with the police, and they were now on their way. We were silent there, cowering in that dark room together. I found myself guilty for wrapping another woman into our worst fear. My thoughts were racing through what I'd said to him. Did I lead him on? No, I just told him to have a good day. Has he been following me for longer than tonight? How did he know what car I drive? Are the police going to get here in time? Are we going to die? Finally, the small room was illuminated with red and blue lights from the crack under the door. We heard a voice over the intercom telling us it was now safe to come out. Shaking, the clerk took out her keys and opened the door. We walked out and gave our statements. After the police left, I turned to my unexpected savior and profusely thanked her. We cried, hugged, and she walked me to my car. The next night, I went back and bought her some food and an Amazon gift card. Now, I've been in a near-fatal accident, 10 feet away from a mountain lion in the wild, and I'm a survivor of sexual assault. I can tell you with total honesty, I thought that was the end of the line. Thank you for reading. Be aware, stay cautious, and stay safe. For context, I'm a 26-year-old male and have a larger build. Not fat, but also not muscular. Just a bigger look to me. I've lived an unusual life and have been through many iffy situations with people, so I'm not frightened easily by odd or wacky people. I can also defend myself pretty well in a fight. I live in a city with pretty bad crime and work on a sketchy side of town. While not the most crime-filled, it was still sketchy enough that you'd get shady people around once in a while. I'm also a fan of the dark, so I love walking at night and do not get scared that easily. I work a second shift job. It's my duty as one of the supervisors to lock the gates after the sun goes down, and all the day shift people are gone. Our work is enclosed with a fence that has barbed wire on top. Just a few days ago, I was walking to close the gate. I was coming from the far side of the parking lot after throwing something away in the dumpster. As I was walking, I could see a strange man on a bike in the distance. It was dark and cold out at this time of year, especially at 8 p.m., so I found it odd to see a man that was at least 30 or 40 riding around on a bike randomly. I carried on though. Maybe it was just a man going to work or leaving from work who didn't have a car. As I continued to walk, I saw he was now doing circles in the road at the end of the little driveway that leads to the fence. Now my guard was up. This was quite strange. As I reached the fence, he had now set down the bike and was staring directly at me. He began walking toward me. He was shaking profusely, like I've seen many people on drugs do before. I was still not super worried. I've dealt with many shady people before after all. I closed one side of the gate quickly and rushed to the other side, swinging it closed. The gate is locked by a chain and a padlock, so I grabbed both sides of the chain. Before I could get the padlock in though, the man stuck his hands through the fence and grabbed me by the shirt. At this point I yelled, "Get the fuck off of me before I beat your ass!" As it was, I was holding the fence closed with just the chains while he grabbed me and kept yelling he was going to kill me. The only thing that was going through my mind was how exactly I was going to get the upper hand on this dude. Should I fight him? Should I wrap the damn chain around his neck? I was fortunate. A police officer just happened to turn the block as this was going down. He flipped his lights on and quickly took down the man and cuffed him. While the man was in his car, he questioned me and got a statement, and I was on my way. It all happened so fast in just a moment. So, to the druggie who wanted to kill me, even though I know I'll run into more one way or another, let's not meet again. So this happened just a little bit over 2 years ago now. I wanted to post it somewhere just to look back on it one day and never forget the lesson I learned. It was 2016. I had just started a new job at a motel. It was low pay, but I needed an office job. One of my friends, Michael, got me this job. For a few days, I did training with the owner in the mornings. For 2 nights, Michael trained me. Our job was the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. Nothing particularly exciting, just checking guests in and doing a bunch of paperwork. My boss, the owner, went away with his wife on vacation for a week, which is attributed to the swift training I had to endure. So, it was my first night alone on the night shift. There was a monitor with security cameras around the motel's property and large glass windows all around the office building with a glass door. There was no night window like most motels have. It was fairly early in the night at about 1 a.m. I was just doing my normal check-in paperwork when a man walked in and asked if we had any rooms available. Usually, if someone is sketchy, my boss has me lie and say no, but this man seemed normal at the moment. Without hesitation, I said, "Yes, of course. Is that just for one?" He replied with an affirmative. I began creating the reservation on the computer when I noticed he started swatting the air and making spitting noises as if he was suddenly being surrounded by flies. I tried to ignore it. As far as I was concerned, that sort of thing wasn't any of my business. I tried to check him into the room as quickly as possible. I gave him his key and he was on his way. At this point in time, I could be described as very timid. I had a lot going on in my personal life. I hope you can all understand my reaction to what happens next. The man came back from his room and slammed his hand on the glass door and caused me to jump. Absolutely frightened, I looked up to see him staring at me. He cracked the door and put his head through and said, "I can't get into my room. Why won't you let me into my room?" My only defense was trying to be helpful, so I replied, "Maybe there's something wrong with your key. Let me give you another one." The look he had in his eyes was inexplicable. I could just feel I was in absolute danger. I handed him his new key. He went back to his room. I tried texting Michael because he was the one who trained me, though it was the middle of the night and he was fast asleep. I needed some guidance. With no reply from Michael, though, I noticed the man trudging down the stairs to come back. I went into absolute panic mode. I ran into the back office and locked the door and pulled out my pocket knife. It's important to keep protection when working alone at night. I heard the man wander into the office and start yelling, "Hello? Hello? Why won't you let me into my room? Do you not like me?" Me being an absolute idiot and not standing my ground and calling the police when I'm feeling scared, I decided to try and take on this situation alone. "No, I'm on the phone. I'll be right out." I then started calling Michael over and over for help. No answer. I decided to take a few deep breaths and then step out of the office. The man was not there. He was in the bathroom. I began to hear him whispering to himself, angrily, "Kill her. Kill her." My heart sank. Still being an idiot and not calling the police, he came out. Your key was broken. I'm sorry. Let me escort you to your room." He agreed, thankfully. I was wearing a long-sleeved sweater, so with my arms down, I was able to hide my knife in my hand while holding it. I began to walk outside. He seemed insistent to walk behind me. We began making our way to the staircase, and up towards his room. I was sweating from how nervous I was, continuously looking behind me to make sure he wasn't going to make a move suddenly. He stopped at a room, and I stopped at his room a few doors down from that. I smiled at him. "Oh, that's the wrong room. This is your room, sir," as it clearly said on the door. The whole time he was trying to get into someone else's room and trying to bust open the door. I felt really bad for them. I quickly ran back to the office and locked the door. The next guest I checked in was a police officer from a few towns away. I felt bad for confiding in them about this guy, but they seemed willing to help and keep an eye out. The next night the man came back, but I had the doors locked. I told him we were all booked up. I explained to my boss what happened when he got back from vacation. However, he did not take me seriously. I continued to work there on the night shift for the next year, where many other strange encounters happened. So, strange man, let's never meet again. And if you ever feel uncomfortable, always call the police. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the content of this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you do decide you like my content enough to subscribe, please be sure to hit the bell button right next to the subscribe button and turn notifications to all so you can be notified of every video I post in the future. If you don't feel like doing that though, I post a video nearly every day, so you can just come back every now and then and check up on what you missed. If you guys have any criticisms on what I can do better or any feedback on the stories in the video, please be sure to leave them in the comments below, as I always enjoy reading all the comments and I try to give them hearts and respond when I can. If you guys would like to reach me for any reason, or you would like to send in a story to be read, you can go ahead and take a look in the description below the video. You'll find a link to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the name of the story is if it has one, what type of story it is if it has a theme, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. Last but not least, I also run two other channels, Mr. Blue Skies and Darkest Hour, where I do true crime videos and dark documentaries respectively. If that kind of content sounds interesting to you, why not go ahead and check it out and see if it is for you. Aside from that though, guys, I think that's pretty much it for now, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.